Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Phil and Frank was just on Around the Horn. So who's co-hosting this show with me?
Let's play two, baby. I'm back. Wardrobe changed,
Ernie.
the whole thing.
All right. Good to
Mike,
have you.
I got bad news for you. If you're not sick of me yet, you're going to see me next week in Boston. Just warning you now.
I'm expecting you to pick up the tab wherever we wind up.
Done.
Just
Starbucks.
saying.
A nice coffee for you.
It better be a lot better than Starbucks. I like their hot chocolate. Welcome to PTI. Tony's off once more, so we get to spend Friday with Phil and Frank Isola.
It's getting worse by the day.
Tepid
They're
at
all
best.
sick of me.
We begin with the Mavericks just destroying the Timberwolves in Minnesota. Luka Doncic single-handedly outscored the Wolves in the first quarter 20-19, and Dallas stormed into the NBA Finals where they're going to meet the Celtics. Frank, how impressive are these Mavericks, and what are your initial thoughts as to how they match up with the C's?
Yeah, so much about last night was shocking, especially the way Minnesota played. But how about the fact that Luka and Kyrie, besides the fact that they both scored 36, they had 44 at halftime. They were outscoring Minnesota, so it wasn't even a game. And Dallas has been terrific. Come on, Mike. They've won their last 5 road games, which is not easy to do in the playoffs. They've been really good with the teams that they've knocked out. And when you start talking, I know we have a lot of time before the finals, but a lot of it's going to come down to, can the Boston Celtics stop Luka Doncic, which was something that clearly Minnesota cannot do. The one thing Boston has going for them, you have Drew Holiday, you have Jaylen Brown, you even have Jason Tatum that you could throw at Luka Doncic. And plus what Boston will do, which Minnesota didn't, you got to seek Kyrie out, you got to seek out Luka defensively and make them defend you. So I think Boston has enough players and has enough to at least wear those two down because let's face it, Minnesota didn't. Kyrie was terrific, Luka was outstanding. Also,
Frank, let me just mention that it looks like everybody's coming into pretty good health for a set of playoffs where health has been the major issue. But, to get Lively back, to get Maxi Kleber back, we presume Porzingis is going to be, available and on the floor for some meaningful minutes for Boston, and they haven't had him for most of the playoff run. So look, it's an irresistible series. I mean, last night I was tired of last night. I think I looked up, I'm sitting there going, when is the game going to start? And it's 70-40. Okay, wipe that clean. We're done with that. Now we move ahead to a finals that it seems irresistible. The tag team nature, everybody's talking about big threes. We don't have big threes, and those are going to go away if they haven't already in the NBA anyway because of, financial concerns, realities. But to have Brown and Tatum and to have Kyrie and Luka squaring off like they will with tremendous support players, tremendous players that fill out not just the starting 5, but the rosters, 8, 9 deep. I don't know who I give an edge. And the Celtics were the best team, as you know, all season long. The best team. They might not have gotten tested. Part of that was because of their superiority. Yeah. But, man, I mean, this was presumed to be the summer of Tatum and the summer of the Celtics. Not so fast. They're going to get a real test.
Yeah, so the Boston Celtics have been installed by Las Vegas as the favorites to win the championship. So many great storylines, as you know, Mike. Kyrie going back to Boston is a huge one. And the Boston fans are enamored with Luka Doncic because he reminds them a little bit of Larry Bird. So you're going to have a player that reminds them of Larry Bird trying to beat the Boston Celtics. And think about how this is going to define certain careers. Boston wins. Look what it does for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. If Dallas wins, think about how it elevates Luka Doncic. And how about Kyrie Irving? That would be 2 championships for Kyrie Irving. After we thought for a couple of years here, where was Kyrie's career headed? Now look where he is. Pretty good.
Yeah, he's on the precipice of something grand. Thursday night. Got to wait a while for game 1. Thursday night in Boston, game 1.
Yeah, it's like a Super Bowl hype. All right, after the game, Anthony Edwards proclaimed, "We'll be back next year." But who is we? The Timberwolves were built to beat the Nuggets, but fell to the Mavs. So, Mike, does Minnesota need to make changes this offseason?
Frank, I know we're a let's make change society for any team that doesn't win the championship. The first cry goes out, are they going to fire the coach? What are they going to do? Well, then they're not going to fire the coach. I'm just looking at the top. I'm looking at their roster, Minnesota's roster right now. And the primary people, Anthony Edwards, Cat, Naz Reid, Gobert, Conley, Jaden McDaniels, Alexander Walker, even Slow-Mo, who's a free agent. Do you bring him back? What do you do? You know what? Even if you said, okay, Mike Conley's a little long in the tooth, been in the league like 18 years, they just extended him. So they're planning for him to be there, and I'm partial to Conley, although I realize, again, Father Time undefeated. So what would you do? You're going to people might want to be upset with Cat and upgrade for him. And to get what? You're going to get a guy at that size who can play both ways, who can play inside out, who is a veteran on that team and seems to fit in terms of personality and was willing to follow along with the young star like Anthony Edwards. I think they do run it back. Maybe they can add somebody, a piece like Bruce Brown. I'm just picking Bruce Brown out because he was a critical player on the championship team a week ago. Maybe there's someone like that. But I think they get better. Be better, be stronger, be sharper, be more determined, be angry, be more resourceful. Those guys seem to have that in them.
Yeah, so, you mentioned one guy, a couple of guys from Jersey. I'll give you one. Maybe he's going to be on the move. You mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns. I think the New York Knicks, they have the assets. You have Julius Randle. I think the Knicks would love to bring Karl-Anthony Towns. And now whether or not Minnesota would trade him would be another thing. A couple of things to keep in mind. Who's the owner of the team? Is it going to be Glenn Taylor?
Is
it going to be Alex Rodriguez, Mark Lurie? We don't know about the luxury tax. Will they be willing to, approach that second apron? I'm not going to bore everyone with the financial part of it, but that is a factor. Here's the other thing, too, and you mentioned, I think you're so spot on. What happens in sports too often, teams overreact to losing and they overreact to winning, much to the detriment of the future for their team. So if you look at Minnesota, let's remember, they beat Phoenix in the first round in a sweep. They knocked out the defending champs, and really the series here changed in Game 2 when Luka hit that shot. So the series was a lot closer than what Game 5 was. They have a really good team. John Krasinski did a good job in The Athletic, reminding everyone Michael Jordan lost his first 2 conference finals. Kobe got swept in his first conference finals. Dwayne Wade, Luka Doncic lost the first time they made it to a conference finals. Listen, it doesn't mean you're going to be back next year because you point out all the time how good the Western Conference is. But I don't know. You don't want to overreact too much to losing. That's a good young team. And the key is, and I thought Chris Finch made a great point, Anthony Edwards needs to get better. And I think him being around USA basketball, around these great stars, is only going to help him. Yep.
I think that will help his USA basketball experience. And, Frank, there is no guarantee. What, OKC is going away? I mean, Dallas should be able to hold or climb incrementally from where they are now, which is playing for a championship.
Ja Morant's coming back.
Yes.
Ja Morant's coming back.
You got so many teams and stars, particularly in the West. Wow. But I like Minnesota's position. I do.
Yep.
And now, despite last night, now to the Panthers beating the Rangers in Madison Square Garden last night. The game was tied after 2 until Florida scored with 9:38 left. Held on to avoid a 4th straight overtime game. Florida heads home now with a 3-2 series lead, but the teams have been separated by just 1 goal over the last 4 games. Frank, where does last night's loss put the Rangers?
Yeah, clearly not in a good spot. And the way the series has gone, I get that the Rangers won 2 games in overtime, but it almost feels like it's 5-0 Florida, that they've won 5 games thus far in the series, and they still got to win 1 more. Obviously, they'll be home. Here's the thing for the Rangers. You and I talked about it yesterday. Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad did not have a single point. They both came to life a little bit, and you still have the goalie, Igor Shesterkin, so you know he's going to give you a chance. And now everyone keeps talking about 1994, and we see Mark Messier all the time on the ESPN ABC coverage. The famous Game 6 they played in the conference finals in New Jersey when he guaranteed a win. They won that. Now, no one on this Rangers team is going to do that, but this is going to be the hardest game they've had to win all season long. And because of that goalie, I still give them a chance.
Well, that's certainly in it, Frank, but I'm going to go away from the goalie for a second and go to the other side of this. The Rangers still can't score. I mean, 2 goals for them seems to be about a ceiling, even though, they surpass that here and there in the postseason. And here's the primary problem. Rangers go 0 for 3 on the power play last night, 1 for 14 on the power play in this series. Shesterkin can't help that, right?
I know.
He's not going to be able to impact that. So if you change that number, if you dent that at all, if the Rangers go, I don't know, 3 for 14 on the power play, they're ahead 3-2 and trying to close out the Panthers in Game 6, most likely. So, listen, they got to take care of that, or I don't see this thing coming back to New York for a Game 7. It'd be fun, but I don't know.
You know, they were up 1-0. They were up 1-0 in that first period on a power play. They were about to have a 5-3 advantage. Then Eric Gustafsson took a penalty, which made it again 5-on-4. That was a big moment for them. So they weren't smart in a moment where they needed to be.
Big turnaround. You're right. Big swing. Let's take a break. Coming up, the Oilers scored 5 straight goals, of course, to finish their Game 4 win over the Stars. Is there a good reason to believe they'll keep it going tonight?
And what's the word for the Chiefs possibly removing their kicker from their kickoff team? How about that?
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by the...
Frank and I have both written millions of words in our careers, but we've saved some of our best ones for this game. What's first?
The Oilers have a blank chance of keeping things rolling in tonight's Game 5 at the Stars.
Frank, the Oilers have a Connorific chance. And you know who I'm referring to, of course, Connor McDavid. Look, I know he's not the only story on that team or the only great asset on that team. They sort of got Darnell Nurse redirected and back playing the way that they need him to play. Draisaitl is second in playoff scoring, only to Connor McDavid, who has 24 points in the playoffs. That's second only to Gretzky. I mean, I shouldn't say second only to Gretzky,
assists.
but that's Gretzky-like. And so it's a Connorific chance when you've got those guys playing the way they did to score those final 5 goals the other night to win that game. I know the game is on the road. I know they're in Dallas. I know you think Dallas is a better team. Connorific. I'm going with the Oilers to win tonight.
That's 28 points, 24 assists that he has. And you mentioned those 2 players. Think about this. Since the 2016-17 playoffs, Connor McDavid is 3rd. Leon Draisaitl is 4th in most playoff points. So all those guys do. I mean, they know how to score and set guys up. And here's my biggest issue with Dallas. Chris Tanev, we talked about it yesterday, with the injury that he took in the game the other night, blocking a shot. He leads all the players in the playoffs with 68 blocked shots. The last time he was seen, in a walking boot. He didn't attend today's optional morning skate. Who knows if he's going to be available to play? That is a big loss for Dallas if he's unavailable. So why give the Oilers a legitimate chance? Maybe they'll go home with a chance to close the series out.
Look, I'm in a walking boot, and I'm still here playing, so don't discount guys in a walking boot.
You got to skate. You got to skate.
What's next?
It would be blank if the Chiefs removed their kicker for the new kickoffs.
Frank, this story makes me sad, but that's really another rant. So my word is adaptive. I mean, Kansas City special team coach really basically said during OTAs or whatever the hell NFL teams are having now, that he expects the kicker, their kicker, given so many new rules, and you got crazy stuff like landing zones, and if it bounces here, you get it at the 20. If it bounces there, you get it at the 30, like some stupid spring league football garbage. But he expects the kicker, because of all these things, to be involved in a higher number of football plays where you got to tackle and block and do other things that a kicker historically didn't do. So I'm going to say adaptive. You have to adapt, but it's just garbaging up the game. I hate seeing this with special teams, particularly the kickoff.
Yeah, but it's all done for health. And the one thing that everyone can agree on with Harrison Butker is that he's a terrific kicker. So you're trying to protect him. And remember, my word is innovative. And what the Chiefs have done, remember, they have Justin Reed, their safety, who kicked off last year when Butker was hurt. And then they brought in one of your favorite rugby players, a Welsh rugby player, Lewis Reese Zammit, who potentially, I know they brought him in to be a running back, but rugby players know how to kick. So I think it's a smart thing for them to do because the stat that you mentioned, they reviewed tape from XFL games. Now, it was pretty wide-ranging. They said between 25% and 40% of tackles the kickers are involved in. So you're looking to protect your best kicker. The kickers are going to change. Here's what I would do if I was an NFL team. Call up Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick was a genius with special teams. Call him up and get his advice on what you should do, because he'll have some good ideas.
He can tell you during the Manning cast, I don't want to hear about the NFL and safety. When the NFL adds a game every chance it gets.
That's fair.
No, I don't want to hear that.
That's fair. A lot of injuries on
they'll
kickoffs.
add one tomorrow if they think they can get away with it with a sign-off from the union. So I don't want to hear about health. That is so fraudulent, please. And that, fraudulent, will be the final word. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Aaron Judge appears to be back on track.
And the Champions League final is tomorrow. Get ready for my pick. By the way, Christmas Day on a Wednesday at Michael Wilbon's house. 2 football games. Get the TV ready to go. We'll be sitting there watching.
I won't be there because there are 5 basketball games. I've been in my house on Christmas Day. Time to get happy, people. Happy 52nd birthday, Dave Roberts. The Dodgers manager has some things to celebrate today. He really does. First, he turned around a 5-game losing streak with a sweep of the sorry Mets. Second, your team is 36-22 in first place in the NL West by 6.5 games. Winning that division, nothing new for Roberts. He's done it 7 of his 8 seasons as manager. And the one year the Dodgers finished second, they won 106 games. Roberts has won 1 World Series as a manager, but maybe most famous for the one he won as a player. In 2004, with the Red Sox, when he stole the base and then scored the run that turned around the ALCS that the Yankees thought they were about to sweep.
That was the painful memory. I love it. Yesterday was Manny. Today's Dave Roberts. What's tomorrow going to be? Varitek? Maybe Mala? By the way, Iga Swiatek turned 22, and she got into the 4th round of the French Open. You could have mentioned her. 23.
She
I'm
does
sorry.
quite well in Paris. Does quite well in Paris most years. Happy anniversary to the 76ers. On this day 41 years ago, the Sixers swept the Magic Kareem Lakers to win the NBA championship. Moses Malone led the way for the Sixers with 24 points and 23 rebounds. His 3rd game of at least 18 and 18 in that series. Moses had famously predicted an undefeated postseason. In his words, fo, 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 444 people. But the Sixers happily settled for inscribing fo, 5-fo on their championship rings as they had lost 1 game to the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Philly has not won a title since. It has been to the finals only once, with Allen Iverson in 2001.
All right, a couple of things about that Philadelphia team that won the title. They were 65-17 during the regular season. Moses Malone does not get mentioned enough when we talk about great centers. And how about some of the other players on that team? Dr. J, Mo Cheeks, Bobby Jones, all Hall of Famers. And then how about Andrew Toney, who I vaguely remember when I was a kid, I don't think he ever missed a shot. How underrated was Andrew Toney as a player?
The Boston Strangler, one of the great nicknames, and maybe the greatest team of all time. Maybe that Sixers team, maybe.
Yeah.
Happy trails to the NCAA's ability to restrict transfers. The NCAA reached a settlement with the U.S. Justice Department that will permanently bar it from restricting athletes' transfer eligibility. Athletes will now officially be allowed to transfer an unlimited number of times, without penalty. And any transfer who has been forced to sit out a year of competition since 2019-20 will have a year of eligibility restored. The NCAA, the longtime self-important and sanctimonious governor of college athletics, appears to be meekly retreating from the scene, Frank, thankfully.
Mike, you like this? I mean, NIL is one thing. It's going to be a complete free-for-all. And we're not just talking about football and basketball. We're talking about every sport. Yeah. We're going to see players that are going to be at 4 colleges in 4 years, or maybe 5 in 5 years.
They're already doing it. In every telecast, the announcer describes a play and says, that's 6 yards for the running back so-and-so, the transfer from. It's automatic. But I don't want the NCAA governing it. I don't want that. No errors today. We're running out of show. Let's get to it. Aaron Judge has hit .355 with 12 homers in May, Frank. Is he back?
He's back. The Yankees are back. You know, the Yankees are 39-19. By the way, last year, Judge only played 106 games. Still hit 37 home runs. Meanwhile, your White Sox have lost 8 straight and now travel to Milwaukee for 3. Defend your team.
They're not mine. My Cubs are in free fall. But more importantly, they're on a pace for 119 losses, the White Sox. They could catch the 62 Mets that lost the modern record of 120. They're that bad.
Yep.
The Mets, speaking of, will retire Darryl Strawberry's 18 tomorrow night. Your thoughts?
I love Darryl Strawberry. When he batted, you had to watch because you may see the longest home run ever. And guess what? 1988 in Montreal, he hit the roof. That might have been the longest home run ever. Angel Reese at Caitlin Clark tomorrow at noon Eastern. Are you intrigued?
That's 9 Pacific time breakfast, huh? A bagel and some cream cheese with that matchup in that game. I'm watching. Last one, Champions League final tomorrow. Dortmund and Real Madrid at Wembley. Who you got?
I want the German team to win, but Real Madrid is going to win. And then guess what? Kylian Mbappe is probably going to join them. You talk about ring chasing. He's going to join the best team in the world. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the Apple Podcast.
PTI.
The Sports Center.
PTI bonus topic.
All right, Frank. Who's the best player in the upcoming NBA Finals?
That's a good question. Now, I did vote Luka second for MVP, and I voted Jokic first. So I'm going to have to go with Luka Doncic and think about the way that he's played. And go back, Mike, to when Oklahoma City beat Dallas in that game 1. And Luka wasn't moving well, wasn't shooting well. Think about how well he's played since, and he was great against Minnesota. And if I'm Boston, be careful. You want to boot Kyrie, that's one thing. Be careful going after Luka because Luka responds to everything. It could be some random fan. It could be Snoop Dogg. He gets all fired up. He'll have a game in this series. I'm not saying they're going to win. He'll have a game where he flirts with 50 points because he's going to play a lot of minutes, and this week off that he's going to get is going to help him recover a little bit.
So I'm sitting here because I vote too. I think I voted Luka. I know I voted him behind Anthony Edwards. I voted Joker first. So I had him further down in that 5. But the playoffs have changed all that, Frank. They have. Necessarily so. And that's a regular season award. Now we're talking about everything, including 3 rounds of playoffs already. And the answer is Luka. And I'm going to tell you something. I was trying to figure out how I would stack the 4 players in this series, and the other 3 being, of course, Tatum, Brown, and Kyrie. And I don't know. Like, there were 3 months at least to start the season. I had Tatum being unquestionably the front runner for MVP, and then he wasn't. And so right now, when I put Tatum above Brown, even his own teammate, I don't know, Brown hits that shot in game 1 against Indy, and he turns around their fortunes. Kyrie, people, let me tell you something I'm tired of. Let me have a rant. People talking about Kyrie, the narrative is changing. He's changing the narrative.
Thank you.
He wrote the narrative when it was a bad one. He was toxic all that time. Now he is doing something different. I don't want to hear this. It's not like it was fiction. Kyrie is now great. He was always great as a basketball player. He wasn't even great as a teammate. And I'll bet you, if I sat down with Kyrie, I would get him to talk about that. Everybody else just wants to make excuses and say, give him their flowers. Yep. Kyrie's great. He was the problem before. He's not a problem now. I don't know how I would stack those other 3 guys, but I'm going with Luka first. Amazing the player he is now.
Yeah, then you'd go Tatum second, Brown third, Kyrie fourth, Drew Holiday fifth, Derek White sixth. There you go. That's it. We're done. Back to you.